Hello, Angry Spork here, with Young Justice Season 3, Episode 8, Triptych. I've never heard that word before, never even read it, but I guess the synonym for it would be fine art. Doesn't really elaborate much, but maybe I'll look it up later. Anyway, we open to Nightwing recounting to Oracle about a break-in at Star Labs Detroit by 3 supercriminals. They intend to steal a rather large, I believe, alien device, and it takes a while for Shade to transport it, and fortunately they get backed up by Cheshire, who takes a bullet in the shoulder to helping them out, but she teleports with them wherever they're going. And Jefferson Pierce and Helga Jace, they spent the night together. That's pretty obvious with the way the previous episode ended on them. And he's wondering if he should have quit the League when Nightwing gives him a call. So he teleports over there, and Connor's not around. I guess he and Megan have to, they kind of indicate like he's been neglecting Megan for a while, so he needs to patch things up with her. I would think it would be more about like planning for their wedding since they are engaged, but whatever. Grayson has a lead on one of the members of League of Shadows, who happens to be Cheshire, but since she's injured, she could potentially be more dangerous than she usually is. She's in an airport hangar on an airplane, actually getting her bullet removed by a evil doctor, I guess. I forget the guy's name, but she's having that patched up when the team arrives, the new team with Geo-Force, Halo, and Forager, and they disable the plane. And there's there are separate brawls, like Nightwing fighting Mist, who seems a little hesitant to fight, but she will. Geo-Force he's fighting the Shade with Halo, but she gets injured, and that just ticks him off even more. And when he gets trapped, Halo displays yet another new aura, that of white, and that seems to be very, very harmful to the Shade, and forces him to retreat and release Geo-Force from wherever he was. Tigress gets on the plane, knocks out the evil doctor, and questions her sister. Unfortunately, Cheshire does not know the name of the new boss for the League of Shadows, but does know that they're based out of Santa Prisca. So, is it Bane? Maybe? Kind of doubt it. Artemis tells her she needs to visit her daughter Leanne, but Cheshire's like, nah, I'm Cheshire first, so she has Shade transport her away and, leaves it at that. So we then go to the Batcave, and Tim finally gets to say something! And he's talking to Batman about he was trailing Jervis Tetch with his own group since he had been released from Arkham Asylum. His squad consisting of Arrowette, Spoiler, who gets to speak too, and Orphan. I'll elaborate on my feelings on that later. They notice that Tetch is drinking a lot of water and doing so very fast, and while they investigate one of his discarded bottles, seeing some clay deposits, Orphan straight up slices him in half with a sword. Turns out it's Clayface, and there's a question, did she know it was Clayface, or did she not care if it was Hatter? And I'll say this much, her Orphan costume in here is a nice departure from the Tinian version. The Tinian, I can't look at that without thinking, A, they ripped off Lin Bei Fong from Avatar The Last Airbender, and I'm not the only one who sees the resemblance. B, this represents a very terrible retcon, and is terrible. But, the Young Justice version, the suit is fine. So Spoiler says that they know Hatter's location and should go after him instead, and that makes Clayface hightail it, which was the intention. They didn't know where Hatter was, but Spoiler managed to implant Clayface with a liquid tracker of some kind. I wonder if it's the same thing that Nightwing gave to Impulse in the second season, but whatever. So they'll track Clayface back to Hatter, who, at the moment, is experimenting on a dude using nanobots, able to control him. And when Clayface arrives, so does Robin's squad. Spoiler chases after Hatter while he's trying to get away with his experiment. And Orphan and Arrowhead are trying to deal with Clayface, and Tim tries to do some snooping while also avoiding said villain. Then, along the way, he notices, hey, Mad Hatter's set this place to explode. We better get out of here. They manage to escape before the explosion, but Matt Hagen is still inside, because he must protect Hatter. And, but of course, it's Clayface. He's fine. They waste no time telling you he'll be fine. So then we jump to a hologram of Wonder Woman talking to McGann and Calder. And they tell her that a pair of Metacrooks were on their way to Bel Rev when they get interrupted by the Sportsmaster and several other villains like Kadabra. But to counter that is the Flash, Captain Marvel, and Rocket, as well as Aquaman himself, Calder. Sportsy takes off with a bearded prisoner who is later revealed to have been the Shade, and when they chase after him, after the fight, they disappear, just like the Mad Hatter did. And all these stories are being told in the Batcave. Everyone basically heard all their stories. And it all leads back to something called Branchwater, a security firm that's owned by various dummy corporations that all lead back to Simon Stagg. And what they do is they abduct crooks, use nanotech to force them to be subservient, and use them for their typically nefarious deeds. Fortunately, Tim managed to find a device in Hatter's lair that can release them from control, and we see him do that with Clayface, and Oracle anonymously tipped off the police to Stagg's involvement, and we see him get arrested. They also took from him a device from the Reach, which was considered by the aliens to be a metahuman failsafe. I guess he was using it in case he needed it against the problem he was kind of creating. And so it was sent to a Dr. Stone in Star Labs, Detroit. And that did remind me that there was a mention of a football player, Victor Stone, I think on the radio earlier, so that's obviously leading up to something. Sportsmaster and Shade is still out there, specifically Shade. And it seems that he was basically under Cheshire's control. However, while the heroes don't think that she'll let him go without some kind of incentive, she hands him the device and just lets him leave, and he goes to terrorize Stagg in prison. Wonder Woman is troubled by all the subterfuge, even though she did agree to coordinate multiple teams amongst the 6 or 7 of them on the down low, keep everyone in the dark. But she doesn't like it, even though it would give the League deniability, and even if Diana has to lie under oath or something like that, she has her diplomatic status to protect her. Even given all that, she's uneasy about it, and she asks all the others if they're prepared to lie too. And they just kind of look at each other, and they're all quiet. So that's pretty ambiguous. Then the credits roll over Sphere in a garage with a couple of bicycles against the wall and 2 motorcycles on the ground. I don't know why I keep pointing out the thing with the end credits, but anyway, this was a nicely done. It was one of those non-linear stories. Like, obviously, Shade being abducted happened before Nightwing's new team went after Cheshire. And it probably happened before the heist. On the other hand, Shade was a lot chattier at the beginning in the first story. Wouldn't make any other sense since he just coldly took Cheshire wherever she wanted to go, and she was the one with the controller. So it was clearly first Shade being abducted, then the Star Labs heist, then going after Cheshire. So the flashbacks were done in reverse order, which it was a very interesting way to do it. Very nicely done. It helped to make certain mysteries remain intriguing. We would find out that current and former Justice League members are operating outside the purview of their allies, that it is a very select number of heroes in on this. So that's why Grayson didn't mention anything about Oracle to Artemis or Pierce or the new kids. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out. I mean, this series has come back strong, and it remains strong. But the orphan thing, I mean, they could just leave it at that. I mean, the whole thing with Spoiler and like, I know I've complained about both these characters' retcons, more Orphan than anything else, more Cassie Kane than anything else. With Spoiler, it's like they have basically given her new 52 suit, but tweaked some to where it's fairly different. Her headgear is less just a face mask like her dad's, and more akin to a balaclava, where there is some coverage over the forehead and so forth. But it is a bit too, visually speaking, it is a bit too evocative of her bad origin, because her origin was not very good. And I think, I've gotten into that before. If they choose to flesh out why this girl that we only saw once in season 2 in a pen full of abducted teenagers, if they flesh out that she became a crime fighter in a way more like her pre-Flashpoint self rather than post-Flashpoint, then that's fine. I mean, yeah, I can say that the costume doesn't look as good, or maybe I could do with something else, because the face mask thing just reminds me of a new origin that is fundamentally atypical of the character, from what I know. As for Cassandra, her costume, again, it's visually very much different from the one she has in the comics, and depending on how they explain why she's called Orphan, again, that could be good, so long as they leave everything about Batman and Robin Eternal out of it. I cannot emphasize enough how bad that story was, especially for Cassandra. And all these people getting excited about, oh, Cassandra's in Young Justice, Cassandra's in Young Justice, oh, Cassandra's going to be in a movie, Cassandra's going to be in a movie. I don't care if she's going to, it's like, just saying the character's going to be in a name isn't enough for me anymore. At some time, it might have been something. But I have very few assurances that Birds of Prey, a.k.a. it's really going to be about Harley Quinn, or whatever that stupid subtitle is, I have no reason to believe it's going to be a good movie or a good representation of Cassie Kane, because the DC movies have 2.5 good movies going for them. And I'm being generous in including Justice League as that half. It's a reflex. Give me a break. If they go with, like, oh, she decided to call herself Orphan because she learned what an orphan is, and that's that's basically what she considers herself, and that's it. That's it. No Batman and Robin Eternal stuff. No Mother. Especially no freaking Harper Row. None of that stuff. Okay, I'll be fine with it. I'm okay with Cassie not being Batgirl, even though that's obviously a vacancy. Because even when in the comics she stopped being Batgirl, I wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't mad about it, because It's the character I'm concerned with. It's Cassandra Cain I'm concerned with. And Tinian, I'm sorry, doesn't get Cassie Cain. He just doesn't. That's depending on if they choose to flesh out these characters in such a way that they get into their origins. I have more faith in Greg Weisman and the team working on this show than I do in anyone working at DC Comics proper. They have repeatedly disappointed me. They have made obvious bad decisions with these characters. And they clearly have this attitude of, well, yes, we're screwing up, but we don't care, so give us money. Whereas I see some actual heart and effort in this series that I did not get with Batman and Robin Eternal. That isn't to say that Greg Weisman is perfect, that he can't mess up, or that everything he's done has been gold. He was involved in the first season of Star Wars Rebels.